Hey bloomers, love knows no age. I bring to you a top of movies with couples in which one of them is older than the other, also known as cougars. The order of the list goes from lowest to highest on IMDb ranking. And don't worry, there's no spoilers so you can see them. I am Capi and this is the Blue Channel.
Number 12. Concussion. The film tells us several mini-stories, all of them having a common point. A beautiful, mature and determined woman who lives with a woman with children, who after suffering a blow to the head, decides to get away from them for a while, renting an apartment in Manhattan, and after a couple of encounters with other women, she decides give a change to your life and venture to provide your sexual services to all kinds of women, of all ages. Homosexual or bicurious. The director openly brings these situations to the table, to question us about marriage, the unconditional acceptance of the couple and the recognition that even spouses, being of any gender, cannot solve all problems or satisfy all desires of the couple. Number 11. A perfect ending. Here a very logical situation unfolds in which an older woman with money can be encouraged to seek the company of a beautiful woman. And it is that this middle-aged lady, named Rebecca, has a good life, and it could not be said that she had a bad marriage with her husband, but the detail that she confesses to her friends is that she has never had an orgasm. They sympathetically suggest experimenting with a professional person and specifically with a woman. Being introduced to Paris by a gorgeous and fine lady in waiting, what follows is a series of awkward and even comical interactions as Rebecca desperately tries to conquer her fears. Paris gets paid, and is happy to be patient and guide Rebecca. But this is not a cliché story of a housewife who falls in love with a lesbian and leaves her husband. This is an exploration of oneself. Rebecca learns more about who she is as a human being, not just about orgasms or sexuality. She falls completely in love with Paris, and embarks on a wonderful physical and emotional adventure. Number 10. Bloomington. A 20-year-old girl who was leading a famous cult series on TV decides to leave it due to a personal tragedy and starts a new life away from her family, studying at a school where she meets this beautiful teacher who is famous for sleeping with her students. Men and women. This teacher, if she takes advantage of her position and her knowledge in psychology to find exactly what young Jackie is looking for, and maybe she can help her find peace. Maybe. The teacher is sexy, playful and kind to her young partner. But of course, seeing all this gives a delicious bit of guilt. Although we also learn that the young woman has a very mature character and knows how to handle this situation. Number 9. Sand Dollars. Unquestionably a classic conflict in couples with a cougar, but considered very objectively and humanely from the point of view of this young Dominican woman who must fight to cope with her poverty, while being involved in a relationship with a very old and wealthy woman played by Geraldine Chaplin, who is madly in love with her. The secret of the young Dominican is that she has a boyfriend who introduced her to the older woman as her brother, but he is really her boyfriend. Who is open to considering that his girl is with that lady for money, because he knows how much he needs it. But at the same time he remains uneasy about the situation. Number 8. Loving Annabelle. One would think that the older woman has more experience and more to teach the younger woman. But in this case, even though the cougar is a teacher, she finds a lot to learn from this attractive young student. They meet, to complicate matters, at a religious boarding school. Annabelle was previously expelled from 2 other schools, but not exactly for being violent or foul-mouthed. Her parents discovered her lesbianism and tried to reform her. But this young woman is a free spirit, a strong and intelligent woman who quickly matured in facing her identity. The teacher understands Annabelle, as she confesses a rebellious past that went very wrong, but now she tries to leave behind. Number 7. Chloe. Here too the young woman seems to have the upper hand. We meet the beautiful Mrs. Julianne Moore as a successful gynecologist who senses her husband's infidelity. And consumed by jealousy, she decides to hire the services of this smart young prostitute named Chloe, to see if her husband is capable of being tempted by another woman. But everything takes an unexpected turn, dark and bawdy, when Chloe begins to seduce the wife. This girl is maybe 25 years younger than her, but in many ways she is wiser and more experienced in sex. Because she has had to learn important lessons to be so good at her profession. Number 6. Freeheld. Julianne Moore again? Of course. Is that both the previous one and this film are quite good. Let's admit it. She now stars as a successful detective who discovers she has terminal lung cancer and struggles to leave her pension to the only person she loves, her young female partner, starring Ellen Page. But it will not be an easy task in a society that is still closed to the civil rights of the LGBT community. This story is based on a real case of which a documentary was made with the same name, Freeheld, a moving story that adds to the efforts to integrate same-sex couples into society. Number 5. Summertime. In this relationship, the older woman, a feminist teacher and activist, brings spark and rebellion to the life of a young woman of peasant origins, whose father falls ill and leaves her no choice but to help her mother with the business of the farm. The older woman then decides to accompany her with her family, introducing herself as a friend. But can feminism and lesbianism be transferred to the standards of life in the countryside of those times? This is a story about the sexual awakening of Carol, the older woman, but also the political awakening of Delphine, the young peasant woman with an immeasurable love for the land. Number 4. The Heiress is a very realistic and well-achieved approach to the bleak life of a typical older Latin lady who begins to feel great restlessness and emptiness upon reaching such a point in her life, with financial problems and seeing that her partner, a woman with whom she has been for 30 years old, she is suddenly sent to prison on charges of fraud. It is extremely interesting, but distressing to see the internal conflicts that are perceived in the lady, although she says few words about them, out of care to keep up appearances. Until one day Angie arrives, a young lady who forges an invigorating and fresh connection with her, which will allow her to break her shell and come out of her depression to find a new path. With very natural and convincing performances whose strength does not depend on the dialogues. They make this story raw, but hopeful. Number 3. Professor Marston and the Wonder Women. It tells the story of how the author of the comic, Wonder Woman, gets his inspiration from tenacious, beautiful, intelligent and strong women like his wife and his young lover. Women ahead of their time. In this film, polyamory is openly discussed, giving it an honest and mature vision. Exposing himself as a stage, for certain people, that can help them achieve new learning, not only for intimacy but for life itself. And of course, it delves into the relationship that most interests us on this channel, that of the wife and the young lover. Number 2. Carol. When you put together the elegant and beautiful Mrs. Cate Blanchett and the electrifying Rooney Mara, you get a relationship that will use its depth to face important challenges and heavy realities. Carol is an attractive woman trapped in a loveless and convenient marriage. While Therese, Rooney Mara, is an employee who works in a Manhattan department store and dreams of a fuller life when she meets this dazzling lady, whose story will teach her that life puts limits on us and that we face very difficult decisions, while that the young Therese will motivate Carol to find a new vision of her reality. Number 1. The Favorite. At the beginning of the 18th century, England is at war with France and the sickly, overwhelmed and fragile Queen Anne delegates her responsibilities to her close friend Lady Sarah, who takes care of her political, health and privacy matters. But one day a sweet and ambitious young maid arrives at her palace, who upon approaching the Queen, discovers her dark cunning and thirst for power that will make her compete with Lady Sarah for the position of the favorite of the Queen. In this story, unlike the others, there are no heroines, since these women have no choice but to resort to their most morbid and disturbing tricks to achieve their goal. It is without a doubt a very peculiar film, at times hilarious and at others shocking.
Thanks for watching this video. If you like it, give it a like and share. This helps me a lot. Tell me what another movie you can find a cougar LGBT woman. Follow me on my social networks and I see you next time. Ciao.